This is Financially Fit Business with Ruth King.
Welcome to the Financially Fit Business Podcast. Here you discover ideas, tactics, news, and information that matters to the health of your business or your clients' businesses. I'm your host, Ruth King. Here's how we will help you increase the financial fitness of businesses today. Subtle changes in P&L and balance sheet trends mean a lot. It's best to pay attention to these small changes and resolve them before they become major cash flow, productivity, or profitability problems. Over the next episodes, I will discuss these changes and potential places to look to resolve them before they do become problems. Let's get started with the first one, the company's overall profit and loss graph trends. If you're just looking at numbers every month, you're not knowing really where the trends are. Sure, you can pull out the financial statements and the P&L from the month before and the month before that, and then in your mind you have to do the graphs. Or you put it in an Excel spreadsheet or something along those lines. The reality is you really have to look at the trends to see what is going on a long-term basis with the business. And part of those trends is doing obviously monthly numbers and monthly graphs, but also looking at it from a trailing perspective, like a trailing 12, and taking a year's worth of data a month at a time. Meaning that if we're looking at the revenue point for January of 2026, we take February 2025 through January of 2026, add them together and divide by 12. And that gives us a point for January 2026. And we can do this with revenue. We can do it with gross profit. We can do it with current ratio trends. We can do it with just about any data that you want to do it with to really look at the trends and what's going on with a particular business. So the comments that I'm going to make today and the thoughts and the suggestions that I make today are all based on the trailing data and the trailing 12 data. Obviously, accurate financial data, which you are really good at producing if you're a CPA. All right. So essentially, what we're looking at is the fact where we want changes in profit and loss statements. We want the profit and loss statements themselves to be increasing or flat line in terms of revenue, increasing or a flat line in terms of gross profit. And the two lines, the revenue and the gross profit lines, should be parallel. And preferably it's the revenue's growing rather than declining or staying flat on a trailing basis. And we want a flat overhead line, as flat as we can get it, because in all reality, in January of each year or sometime during the year, most business owners give at least a cost of living increase raise. So the overhead goes up a little bit with respect to Social Security and taxes and health insurance and all the fun things that we have as benefits. And we want the net profit line to go up the same shape in the same way as our revenue and our gross profit line do. And that occurs when our overhead line is fairly flat. Okay. So those are the things that we want to look at with respect to trailing numbers in a overall profit and loss statement. And here are some places that you should pay attention to. If the line between revenue and gross profit is starting to spread, it's not parallel anymore, little changes there really and truly mean a lot. Little changes in those particular areas are generally one of two things. One is suppliers have raised their prices and the company has not raised its prices to its customers to take in this additional cost, or two, that the company itself is experiencing problems, issues, whatever, with respect to productivity, and that the people producing those products and services are not as productive in the past. One of those two things is generally going on. And I'll cover each of those. I'll cover gross margin issues and I'll cover productivity issues in later podcasts. I just want to do an overall for a P&L subtle changes that you want to take a look at in this particular podcast. So if you start seeing those subtle changes, the first thing that I would do is find out, number 1, did suppliers increase their prices? I can't tell you how many suppliers sneak in price increases. Drives me crazy. Reality is that they do it because they don't wanna send you a letter, they don't wanna send you an email, because they don't want the backlash of phone calls of, "I don't wanna pay these extra prices," and they don't want you to start shopping and going other places. However, if you have a good customer base and a good relationship with your people using your supplies, they should do it, and their costs increase, so they have to pass along those increases to you. And most people, upon getting an email or getting a letter like that, will just go, "All right, another price increase." They have to remember to increase their prices. The other area where this becomes very, very critical is if they did give those raises. And it's not, as you all know, just the 5% raise that they gave or, the rate of inflation rate that they gave. It's everything that gets tacked on top of that that they have to add to. So, for example, if you raise a person's hourly rate or their salary by 5%, the FICA and the Medicare and they also go up. So, I mean, you have to add that extra in there too. You have workers' comp issues in a lot of industries. You have health insurance issues. You have 401k issues. And all of those expenses generally, from what I've seen, add up to somewhere between 30 and 35% of payroll. So if you increase payroll by 5%, you have to actually increase prices by, if assuming 30%, by 6.5%. So that's one thing to pay attention to in making sure that that line doesn't spread. Now, what about the overhead side of it with raises? Yes, you're going to do that too, but you're going to see little increases in overhead. I mean, think about it this way. A lot of times rent goes up the next year, our gas bills go up and our utility bills go up. Our telephone costs go up. So you would expect a slight increase in overhead. And as you do that, remember that the trailing data is a year's worth of data a month at a time. So what you would expect is over a year's time that the overhead would go up by 5%. And that over a 12-month period of time almost stays flat. So just be careful with that. If overhead's going up, you need to find out why. Did you hire additional office personnel? Did you rent a new space? Are you adding, other things that are overhead related? Are you increasing your marketing spend? Are you increasing your training spend? Are you increasing travel spend? There is a reason and should be a reasonable explanation as to why overhead increases a lot. I mean, I've seen the number just continue to go up and continue to go up and to continue to go up. So it's really a situation where you have to look at it and figure out why overhead is increasing the way it is. And that's just questions that you need to ask. Because if overhead continues to increase at a very high rate, your profitability will start to decrease, and you will see it in the net operating profit lines that are there. So this is the overview of where we are with respect to subtle changes mean a lot. We want to look and make sure that our revenue lines on a trailing basis and our gross profit lines on a trailing basis are parallel and keep them parallel. We want to make sure that our overhead is increasing at a very small amount or staying flat. And we want to, at that point, then we know that our net operating profit line will be at the exact same increase as our revenue and our gross profit line. So though that would be perfect. If it's not perfect, make sure you find out about supplier bills, make sure you find out about productivity, make sure you find out about additional spends with respect to overhead, and get a reasonable explanation as to why overhead is increasing higher than it should be increasing. So that's the overview. Next podcast, we'll get into the gross margin piece of it, which actually should be telling the same story as our profit and loss graphs. So thank you for joining us. Choose one thing that you discovered and implement it in your business. These ideas, tactics, and strategies help you make more money, have more free time, and give back. If you liked today's program, spread the word. Please review this podcast on any device you're listening to it on. Help a business owner improve the health of his company. For comments or questions, call me at 770-729-8000 or email rking@financiallyfit.business. Thanks for listening. Have a great and profitable day.